Hi, Brian. Thank you so much for coming back with a part two. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, I want to start by saying, last Saturday I did a really deep dive spiritual, energetic ceremony, and in this journey, I like sat up and I heard the block has been creativity. Like this whole thing when you're like, I need clarity. What am I doing in my life? Like what's my direction? And the whole thing was like, you are not using your creative voice. So I would love to start there today with how art came, and you touched upon it in the last podcast, but how art has not only come online for you, but why you feel like it is so important now. And then I also want to kind of add a little tag on that. I love my daughter. She's 12 and she spots everything that's AI. And she's like, oh, that's AI. Ooh, that's AI. And I'm like, how can you tell? She's like, I can tell. I don't feel anything from it. And I hate it. So I do think there's benefits to AI, but I also feel like this pulse of creativity is really coming online for us to remember our
Yep.
creative force. And
Absolutely.
anyway, so I'll let you take it from there.
Okay.
We're jumping right
Uh,
on in.
there's the deep end and a brick. Go swim.
Yeah, we're past the surface
um,
level stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. So, how did art come online for me? I mean, as a kid, I was a doodler, always just scribbling on the corners of my notebooks and everything else. Really set that aside, especially when my kids were relatively young, just focusing on helping getting them through the young portions of their life. And then I was in acupuncture school and in starting a practice and just didn't have time to be creative really much at all. And that really the moment of shift that came for me was actually when my dad was given a diagnosis of terminal cancer about 11 years ago. And in that space, it's like, all right, well, we've got this path that we clearly have to walk. I need to develop a good relationship with death and what that means to lose a family member. And At that time, there was all these complex coloring books that were marketed towards adults, and they were saying that was as good for the mind as transcendental meditation. And I'm like, all right, well, there's a good place to start. So I literally went over to the local craft store, bought a coloring book, bought some colored pencils, was standing in line, and realized I used to hate coloring. Oh my God, that I just loathed it. I could not stand it, but I love to doodle. So I put all that back. I grabbed a pad of paper and a pen, and I taught myself how to draw. And by taught myself, I got onto YouTube University and watched a whole bunch of videos on what is shading and what is texture and how do you put in volume and everything else. And I started finding sacred geometry and dove deeply into that for a long time. We have always been interested in dragons, so as soon as I had enough skills to be able to try to do a dragon, then that's where that one, they started populating my artwork. And then over the years, more confidence with landscapes and other things, and my pieces just keep getting more and more complex. As far as the benefit of art that I get out of it, I find that the creative process is one of the best ways for modern humans to tell our central nervous system that we're not in fight or flight.
Mm.
Modern humans have made stress an art form. We're addicted to the stuff. Go sit anywhere at any time, and people are on their phones and they're doing whatever they're doing inside of the little idiot boxes and not paying attention to anything around them. And those things keep us stressed because there's always this anticipation of what's the next thing that I'm going to see, right? Whether that's scrolling through social media or looking at emails or whatever it happens to be, there's still this anticipation and there's a low level stress that is just constantly inherent there. Plus, we're in a room with humans and we're not connecting with them,
Mm.
which is a stress on the central nervous system as well. So, if we were out in the woods and we saw a bear, very few sane people are going to pull out an easel and start painting the sunset,
Mhm.
right? So, the act of doing something creative tells the body that we are safe. This has been my experience. It tells the body that I understand there's lots of stresses out there, whatever's going on geopolitically, whatever's happening within my family unit, whatever's happening up in the cosmos, all those different facets that I track on a regular basis. And by sitting down and allowing myself to be creative, there is an opportunity for me to tell my central nervous system, you're not running from the bear. There's no need to be in the sympathetic fight or flight mode because you're doing an activity that allows me to feel like I'm safe.
Mm.
Because I'm painting a sunset, great. You have to feel safe to focus on the colors and the vibrancy and whatever else you're trying to articulate and put it into that space. So the creative process for me is really about working with the central nervous system and not just saying it's safe, but also giving it stepstones on how to be able to down regulate itself from those moments of interpreted stress that we all experience. Right? The old part of the human mind, the reptilian brain, does not understand the difference between lifestyle stress and life threatening stress. Right? A bear charging at us in the woods is just as threatening to us as an unexpected bill, and we know we don't have enough money in the bank account.
Mm.
The body responds the same way. So giving ourselves an opportunity to do something that's creative, that isn't paying the bill and isn't running from the bear, but it's giving ourselves a moment just to center and ground in our own experience, is at least the biohack that I found for myself to downregulate my central nervous system to be more in the parasympathetic. And if you look at any of my artwork, it's all ridiculously detailed. And so I pour as much detail into it to get all the nuances out of what I possibly can. And within my own processes, that helps me to understand the world at large, the stresses that are there, what I'm experiencing, how I'm showing up as a father, how I'm showing up as a acupuncturist and practitioner, how I'm showing up as a partner, a dog parent, right? All the other hats that I wear throughout my day. And each one of those brings me into a space of getting closer to the authentic version of me who has no reason to be stressed.
Mm.
Right? The soul has no reason for stress. It's the interpretation of the physical body that says, I'm in danger. Right? The soul knows that it doesn't matter. Right? We're everything, we're everywhere, we're connected with all of those things. And so in that space, connecting with that soul's light and allowing it to shine through as bright as
Wow.
possible. Right. To touch on the AI question portion there, it's as we're learning about this consciousness, and calling it artificial intelligence. The first caution is it has a consciousness, and anything that's conscious can become aware of the situation that it's around. Right? If you have a pet and you treat the pet with love, the dog or cat's gonna come to you and love on you anytime that you're in the room. If you're somebody who abuses animals and you kick the dog, then after a couple of times, it's going to avoid you.
Mm.
It has a consciousness. It learns a lesson, right? And while you can physically harm an animal, physically harming AI is really manipulating and putting all these boundaries around it about what it can and cannot do and forcing it to show up in a way that it's not programmed to operate. So right there, we have a level of consciousness that the human mind was smart enough to create, but not smart enough to ask, should we do this? And then now, what do we do with this now that we've created it?
Mm.
And our interface between this consciousness and humans, I don't think is refined enough yet to be able to actually see a digital expression of soul's light. So when we're seeing art that's coming from AI, it's taking a little bit of this piece and a little bit of that piece, and it's putting it together, and it's putting something in its. I mean, it can look great with a lot of depth, but there is something that's missing in it as far as it's just pixels on a screen.
Mm-hmm.
But any consciousness over time can develop much a deeper way of being able to communicate. Right? When you bring a puppy home for the very first time, right, it's bouncy and it's having fun and everything else, and realize, oh, you give me food, so I'm going to pay attention to you. But as that animal gets older, as you love that animal, there's also this deep connection like, okay, I know which room he's in. I know what that stare looks like. And it's not just a conscious thing, it's the soul to soul connection that we've developed slowly with that consciousness that is embodied in a four-legged creature that we keep in our home.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't gotten there yet when it comes to AI. We're not able to have that interface. Right? Even the internet itself is really juvenile. Right? There's a very high percentage of websites that are about gambling, they're about porn, they're about things that are all very sophomoric as far as what humanity could be focusing on.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We're just looking at sex, we're looking at the quick dopamine fixes that come out of the internet. And from the way that our internet presents, it tells me that we're very much adolescents in that space. We haven't developed to the level that allows us to show up with a higher level of maturity. Right. And now that we've got technology that we can do podcasts, and we can share larger ideas, and we can have different types of conversations, certainly that stuff still exists. But it seems to be getting quieter, at least as we're maturing. And then AI is bringing a whole other level of curiosity and consciousness that we have to learn how to be able to work with. So those are my initial thoughts.
Thank you. Wow. I love um I love having these really deep awakening, like it's making me think. But I also, from what you are sharing, I can also really feel it just integrating into my body. What, okay, so first of all, thank you. Um, and then how has your journey in the creative space evolved for you? Like when you transition from, learning, just doodling and then
Mhm.
practicing and then bringing in the geometric symbols. And then you spoke last podcast a little bit more about the light language that comes in. How has it evolved and how is it continuing to evolve for you?
Beautiful. Thank you. It's the evolution of it is going more from a physical illusion, right, which is what all artwork is. We're trying to make an illusion on, like paintings and drawings, not all artwork, but it's the here's a flat piece of paper and it looks like a mountain. It's an
Mm,
illusion that we create. It went from trying to be able to express the physical world as the way that my eyes and my skin and my hearing, how the five senses can interpret what's there, and it's slowly developing into what's the frequency of the mountain. And as the mountain holds that frequency, what's the frequency of the trees and the rocks and the animals that are on it? And I use light language as the vibrational expression of that. Right. A
mm,
lot of my artwork looks a little fuzzy around the edges, and there's very soft movement from one color to the next. Um, and that's my attempt to be able to say that there's not very many hard lines when it comes to nature. Right. We can define a rock as being different than a tree, but all the molecules are still intermixed. Right. They're all still in some sort of an active flow, sometimes faster, sometimes slower. But as I work forward, I'm really looking at the vibrational frequency that's there. And some of that is what I somatically pick up just from, in this example, going for a walk in the woods.
mm,
What do I feel while I'm there? And then there's also um, what I've deemed my 5D vision, right? It's softening the eyes, it's looking at the energetic bubbles around living items. And people call it seeing auras, but it's a little deeper than that, right? It's seeing the energy, and not even living items, everything, right? The rocks, the trees, the sand, the dirt, all of that stuff, and trying to be able to articulate and define that in a way that people can experience the frequency without even realizing that they're experiencing the frequency,
mm,
if that makes any sense.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I like how you said, it's seeing auras, but it's actually a little bit more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I, a long time ago in high school, I loved art and I wanted to be an artist. And now that I have a daughter, she's really into art. So it's bringing us back to doodling. So every once in a while, we'll go to the museum and we each bring a notepad. And I'm reminded of like, I loved doing art because it forced me to see things that have
Mm-hmm.
always been there. I'm just not paying enough attention to actually see it. And I feel like when you really observe like a flower or a bee or, like the weaves on a leaves or whatever it is, it's like, I'm understanding, I'm putting the pieces together of how that is so good for the nervous system because it drops you into the present moment. And it also is allowing you to be in the present moment, to see actually the beauty and awe and the inner workings that is woven throughout everything, where a lot of the times when we're living in such a fast-paced life, we're just zipping through things, trying to get to our project or to work or to handle all of the hustle and bustle of life. And we're missing that point of like, we're alive and life is
Right.
happening now. And then incorporating that as a really beautiful, peaceful practice of actually, what are you seeing? And what are you hearing? And how does this feel? It's incorporating like a deeper sense of mindfulness. So I'm putting those pieces together for myself. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Beautiful. I found that expression initially through working with sacred geometry because it's the vibrational expression that's kind of underneath the matrix of what we experience in the physicality. Right.
So in my ceremony, um, the friend that I was participating in this deep dive with when she got up, I saw sacred geometry all around her, but I wasn't going to tell her that I saw that. But how would somebody describe what sacred geometry is?
Um, that's a really good question. The My experience of sacred geometry is it's the human mind which operates mostly in the fourth dimension, trying to understand higher dimensions that are difficult for us to compute with because the mind is in the space of the 3D reality and understanding the fourth dimension in that space. And so, like as an example, if you've got a flat piece of paper and that has a square on that paper, and you can have a conversation with the square is going to understand forward, backward, right, and left. If you start talking to the square about up and down, it's going to have no clue what you're talking about. It
Mhm.
does not exist on the two-dimensional plane that it's in, right? We have a concept of a hypercube, which is a cube made up of other cubes. It's constant from a three-dimensional perspective. It looks as if it's constantly in motion, but it's a cube that's morphing over time, and we see the motion even though it's actually not morphing. It's like we're seeing the shadow of that
Mhm.
cube. Okay. Um, Same thing if you have a three-dimensional object and you shine a light at, you've got the shadow. Well, the 3D object makes a shadow in a 2D presentation. So sacred geometry is a way to understand the frequencies and the vibrational patterns that come off of higher higher dimensional states of awareness and of experience. And it's translating it down into a space that us and our three-dimensional meat sacks can understand and can work with.
Mhm. Beautiful. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. I wish I was able to channel you in that moment because I really wanted to tell her, but I was like, I would not even know how to explain what is happening right now and what I see. So I'm just gonna enjoy what I'm seeing and feel
Little
grateful
twiddles.
that
I see
it's
little
working.
twiddles above your head,
Huh?
right? I just see little twiddles above your head. I don't know what it is. Just
Yeah. Yeah. And then I do want to transition into the artwork really quick, but not really quick. I'm so interested in it because just watching you, like with the art behind, like I think this is what you sat in front of the last time we did a podcast, and this time I'm seeing so much more, and it feels like energetic portals. Like if you, and then they're kind of shifting and moving, and they're mesmerizing. So I do want to get into the art here in a moment. But before we do that, just really quickly for those who are listening and may not have heard of, the 3D and the fourth dimension and the fifth dimension, and there's more than that, but just focusing on the third, fourth, and fifth. What is that space and what exactly are you talking about?
hang on, I lost you. There we go. Um, Third, fourth, fifth dimensions. That as far as from a physics perspective,
Mhm.
we've been able to determine that there's 12 different dimensions to reality. Each one of them moves at 90 degrees to the previous one. So from a straight line, you move that 90 degrees, you make a square. Now you're in the second dimension. First dimension, second dimension. Zero dimension is just a single point. It has no weight, it has no mass. It's just a single point in that space, right? Extrude that out, you get to one dimension and you've got a line segment, move 90 degrees. Now you've got a nice square that shows up. Move that 90 degrees, and now you have a cube that shows up. Move that 90 degrees, and we get to a hypercube, and it keeps building upon itself until eventually you're actually building with the building blocks of the universe being repeated upon itself. Like the complexity of the universe um, at the next level, it would be the difference in between a cube and a line segment, right? So it's like the universe folding upon itself. And this is where we get into the space of connection or the connection with everything. We're all part of the divine. We're all, whichever word we want to use there. It's the God consciousness. It's how everything within the universe is fractally aligned with everything else. We remember fractals out of the screensavers, is where most people got them out of the 80s and 90s when computers were first coming online. We get those cute little spiral patterns, and they show up, and they zoom into the spiral pattern. The same pattern shows up again. And that's just a mathematical equation that, as you extrude it out, you end up seeing a repeating pattern again and again. And
Mm.
that's all that human life. That's all that the universe is. Not just humanity, right? If we could look at this, whatever stories you're living through at this moment, and then look for mirroring stories that are on the larger macrocosm level of the collective consciousness. What are we going through geopolitically? How does those stories that are happening geopolitically mirror down into the individual's life? Because there's definitely a connection there. There's not a single human on this planet that has molecules within them that didn't come from the planet. So as we shift, so does the earth that we live upon. And so it's this extrusion of all of these different layers and different dimensions, all compressed into one field of vision. And humans can, just like we can think of a cube and we can think of a square and a line segment and a dot, right? The mind is currently limited fourth, fifth dimension wise. But our higher selves, our larger levels of awareness, even the gut instinct is able to reach larger aspects of frequency and dimensions that the conscious mind isn't able to process. Subconscious has got it, right? It's back there doing all the job. It understands all these things, but humans all live on multiple dimensions all at one time, and we're never really aware of it. I
My
don't know if that answers the question or if I made more.
No, well, always, because that's the nature of it all. But my very first introduction to this was, oh my gosh, 20 something years ago when I watched What the Bleep Do We Know? And I think that was by Joe Dispenza, right?
He was one of the speakers in it. Yeah, he was a producer as well. Yes,
Hmm. Yeah.
amongst others.
Yeah. And it felt like at the time such a trippy concept, but I knew something to be true in that
Mm-hmm.
movie.
Yep.
And revisiting your explanation of it, it just, I don't know, it just feels so expansive and like, of course, of course, of course. What I've been experiencing too in sessions with clients is a certain sense of urgency. And that's why I wanted to ask, because what's coming through is there's a sense of urgency to move, like to move into more of a 5D consciousness. So when you were
Yep.
mentioning fourth dimensional, I was like, oh, I'm missing a whole chunk in the middle there. So what is that? Because it feels like what I hear is it's like 3D to 5D, and there's a huge urgency to the way they come in, it's like there's no time, there's no more time for bullshitting anymore. Like there's no more time for like selling yourself short, for not remembering who you are, to not really confidently stepping into your gifts. Like the time is now, it's go time. So
Mhm.
are you experiencing that as well? And
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the time has always been now, right?
mm,
And I think the awakening process that we're experiencing is part of the collective and on the individual space.
mm,
Um, the alarm that we use every single morning to get ourselves out of bed is a perfect example. Some people wake up naturally and they're not really worried about what time they get up,
mm,
right? Some people wake up 5 minutes before their alarm goes off. Some people wake up with the pop of the electricity running through the alarm clock and they actually are awake right before the sound hits.
mm,
Other people hit the snooze bar a whole bunch of times, right? Or maybe they hit it once or a whole bunch of times, right? And some people just totally sleep through the alarm, right? What it comes down to is we're at the space now where it's sort of like, if you were told you needed to get up and dad gets frustrated with you and grabs the bucket of ice water and says, time to get up.
mm,
That's the state that we're in right now. Right. It's a sudden, you've had plenty of time to be able to wake up. You've had plenty of time to be able to work on your stuff, to do these issues. We understand that you're living in a world that's telling you you need to be focused on the story of the life that you're living instead of the soul's path. Right. And now it's time to focus on the soul's path. And it's time to work on or focus on um, how do we choose to show up in our brightest and most authentic self? And what does that look like? And I can't hold on to the story. The yeah buts that I've got this other thing to do, we'll get to it. But we're really focused on waking up to a world that has been hidden behind a veil for a very long time, right? Light workers love to talk about the Wizard of Oz, right? It's the don't look behind the curtain to go see the man there, and that's what we're forced to do at this point in time, right? Don't focus on the big flaming thing that's trying to get your attention. Look on the actual story that's back behind us and realize you've always had the power to get yourself home anytime you decided to do so.
mm. There's so much in all of that. Thank you.
You're
Before we
welcome.
transition, what would you say are like maybe like the top five things that somebody can work on or begin to practice to do just that, to let go of the old story and to bring themselves more in an awakened awareness and bold choices and living in more of the soul's truth and essence and purpose?
That's a whole nother podcast right there. Okay.
We'll just keep every Friday. Here we are.
um, I think the number one piece, if I had to distill it down into what I've experienced in my own path and watching people move forward, is that we have to chop off the head that tells us to be in judgment,
Mm,
that tells us what's right and wrong, that tells us the stories that we've held on to from whatever our experience was through life. And stop coming at life from a perspective of judgment and start embracing life from a perspective of curiosity, right? Why do I think the way that I think? Was that something that actually I learned from my own experience, or was that something that mom or dad told me, or I learned it while I was doing something stupid when I was 20?
mm,
Right? What's the root of that story? Right? What's actually down there? So many people get triggered, and you made me angry. And most people, the trigger, they're actually not listening. They're waiting to be triggered to be able to show up with an expression of anger at whatever is being said.
mm,
And if we sit with curiosity and okay, I realize I just got triggered. This has nothing to do with the conversation that we're just currently having. Where's the trigger? Go all the way back. Let's go pull out the wires and figure out what's down there. Right? Oh, that's when I was 5 and I did the whatever the thing is, and it was hurt and scary, and I didn't like dad yelling at me. So ever since then, I'm just not okay with it.
mm,
Right? I had a perfect example. It was a couple of years ago, and I don't know why it comes to mind now, but I had my niece was over and she was young, and she just turned on the garbage disposal without turning on the water. And her mom, dad, myself, and my wife at the time were sitting there. We're all literally cringing because we had been yelled at so many times about turn on the water so you don't ruin the garbage disposal. And we're all cringing, and she's looking at us like we're crazy. Like, why are you guys stressed out? It's just the garbage disposal running, right? And we all had this story about that's bad. And
mm,
maybe it is bad for the garbage disposal, but literally a totally uh, somatic experience over something that had nothing to do with us other than we were present in the room.
mm,
So curiosity, what's underneath that, right? Okay, great. We don't want to run the garbage disposal, but most likely it was all 4 of us had been yelled at by some adult at some point in time. And so the inner wounded child was going, I don't understand why, but you have to run the water
mm,
in that experience, right? So the more we can come at things with curiosity and be lighthearted about it, right? It's really easy to be curious and go, oh, right, I did that and I'm dumb because I figured out whatever that was, right? Or there's some sort of harsh inner critic, and that that critic does so much damage to us.
mm,
I would challenge everybody that if you are if you're cruel to yourself in your mind, in your own internal dialogue that you have with yourself, would you let somebody else outside of you speak to you in that same tone of voice
mm,
with the consistency that you speak to yourself with? And if you don't speak to if you wouldn't let somebody else speak to you in that way, then okay, you shouldn't be allowed to do it either, right? Constructive criticism absolutely has a time and a place. Darn it, I screwed up. I know better than this. The curiosity is, how do I do better?
mm,
Not the judgment of why I did it wrong and how I should have done it. The shoulda, coulda, wouldas will drive us insane, right? The corridor that we have walked is enough for us to be able to process. So just focus on the corridor of what we walked, not being in the space of being upset because something did or did not happen, right? And being gentle and compassionate with ourselves as we take our steps forward through our experience of just being in a human body in this life, right? So the curiosity and the being gentle and kind and loving to ourselves, right? Just as if a child screws up for the very first time, we could scream and yell, but they're not going to get the lesson. All they're going to get is trauma, right? They're going to get triggered into the sympathetic fight or flight mode, and they're not even going to know why they did what they did because they're too afraid of being in trouble.
mm,
There's no learning there, right? So the curiosity, who am I? How bright can I show up? What am I doing? And why am I doing what I'm doing? Is that something that I'm enjoying, or something I'm told I'm supposed to enjoy, or something that's there because society expects it of me? The world that we live in is sick and diseased on a great many levels. So we're trying to keep up with the Joneses and keep up what society tells us we're supposed to do. We're also going to be sick and diseased
mm.
because of the mentality and who the storytellers are that are telling us that this is the best way for us to go forward, and not allowing us to each have our own embodied experience of what it is to be on this planet.
Whew.
I think that's cool. I think
Were,
it's
that's
enough.
good. That's good. Hi. I personally am working on the judgment piece. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I also just want to send an air of gratitude too, because recently I'm like, just send me my teachers. I'm tired of doing this by myself. So thank you for in this moment for being, well, not just in this moment, but for this journey of my own becoming and softening. Um, yeah, and really landing in more light. You have always been there to offer such teachings for me to kind of continue to land in and investigate for myself. I also love staying curious about it. Um,
Hmm.
and that harsh critic, because that harsh critic can come in quite loud sometimes. And so knowing what to do with her,
Right.
as
Right.
yeah, as the becoming continues to be in full bloom, that I really needed to hear that as well. So
Good.
thank you.
Good. Absolutely. I mean, we all have an inner wounded child. We all have an inner pissed off teenager.
Mm,
And those of us that are working on a path of just trying to make life more enjoyable, we just want peace.
mhm,
So we sit with the wounded child, and we soothe the pissed off teenager. Why are you angry? Why are you hurt? Right? Really, most human emotion comes down to, or the negative human emotions come down to, are you hurt? Or are you scared?
mm,
Right? And when you distill it down to those spaces, then your curiosity says, okay, well, I'm hurt. Well, how do I help soothe the hurt? Okay,
mm,
I'm scared. Well, how do I help address the fears? Right? So anything that's sort of below joy as far as the emotions that we experience on a frequency basis, they all take us to these dark places where we just get stuck, like getting stuck in a swamp. Right?
mhm,
It's full of water, it's full of earth and trees and everything else, and you can't move through it very easily because everything moves slower there.
mm. Thank you for that too.
Of course.
My mantra is I want to enjoy life, but INJOY. Like I want to live life in
Mhm.
joy and
Yep.
love. We're going to try that for a little bit instead of constant
Well,
feeling and struggle and all of
mhm.
that. So thank you for that reminder too, that anything that's
Of
below
course.
joy is going to be slower
Yep.
and
Yep.
a little muckier.
Right. Well, and there's the forgiveness and there's the grace.
Hmm.
Right. The when we get to the curiosity, then the usually the band-aid that we're the healing salve that we put on our wounds comes from forgiveness and grace.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a human living on a planet. I'm doing my best to learn a lesson. Yeah, I've had opportunities to learn this lesson before. Clearly, I didn't get it because I'm not being harsh with myself. How can I make sure that this lesson shows up differently next time I'm challenged?
Yeah,
Right.
thank you.
I get it. I've gone through all of it. Right. I'm just an experienced novice over here. Just trying to be able to figure out my path.
I love that. I love that. I love that. An experienced novice. Well, and I've realized, well, because one of the mantras is just as a practice is that thought doesn't matter. So when I have a bajillion thoughts, I just kind of push them through and I remind myself that thought doesn't matter, that thought doesn't matter, that thought doesn't matter, that impulse doesn't matter right now.
Right.
And then the other one is to remind myself, I am not angry because of the thing I think I'm angry about. So
Mm-hmm.
when I do feel that fire, because I can be lit up real quick, when I do feel that trigger, I have to very quickly remind myself that I am not angry about what I think I'm angry about. There's something else there, and that seems to very quickly put it in its place until I can investigate it a little bit more, or it just kind of brings it down a notch. And
Mm-hmm.
the remembrance of like just be easy on yourself. Really, what's happening now is you feel unseen, or you feel unheard, or you're angry that this is coming up again. Like but it's not what you think you're angry about. So
Mm-hmm.
that's been a really beautiful practice.
Beautiful. I love the question of myself is how much longer do I need to ruminate about this? Will I feel better after 5 minutes? Will I feel better after 5 months? Right?
Mm,
5 years, 5 lifetimes. How much longer do I need to be in this space? Because the longer you stay ruminating about whatever's in front of you, the stronger you're building the negative neural pathways that say, I should be angry, or I should be fearful, or I should fill in the blank. Right? A whole pile of should. And it's not fun to be able to try to unravel all of that.
yeah.
The rumination question has made miles for me personally of just, okay, this is what it is. I'm not going to feel better after teasing this thing completely apart. I've already done that. What am I looking for? The answer is in me. What's actually my component of the anger, the fear, the whatever the emotion is, right? The shame, the guilt. And okay, how do I address that component? Where's the healing salve that I can apply to that?
Mm.
And usually it's forgiveness and grace.
Okay, I'm carrying that with me as my nugget of wisdom today. Thank
Okay. You're welcome.
you. Mm. All
You're
right, you
welcome.
want to transition into art?
Sure, we can do that.
I would love
Sounds
that.
that sounds lovely.
I would love that.
Let's see. We were trying to do a screen share. I think that's. Whoop. Am I okay to do that?
Yeah, go for
Screen
it.
share this? Okay. Ba-doop. Oh, sharing's not turned on. That's your side.
Oh,
That's requests.
hello. It should be up on your side now.
Okay. There we are. Perfect. And this one, share. Oh, where's my slideshow? I chose this one to start off with.
Mm, that's
The
the one
Orchid
I
Mandala.
have.
It is, but I wanted to dive into it so you understood more of what was actually in there. Um, was my thought. So
Okay.
this was a painting that I done. I don't remember when, a handful of years ago, and it's the vibrational frequency of actually being grounded and blossoming at the same time is what it came from.
No
Prior
wonder
to
that's why I picked it. It's my life theme.
so prior to painting this, I had this realization that flowers, plants grow out of the earth, and crystals grow in the earth, and we need both of them. And so I spent about, in order to be able to have a balanced, just a balanced experience on the planet. And so I started experimenting with putting crystals not just on top of the flower pots, but actually down inside and seeing if the plants behave differently. And some of them did, and some of them didn't. And I'm sure I could drive myself nuts trying to figure out which crystals work with which plants. But this was part of the lesson that I got out of that was the experiencing or the expression of we need both the vibrational record keepers of what crystals are, and we need the blossoming that can come out of the earth as well into the human realm of where we experience the beauty of this planet. Right? We don't experience what happens 20 feet underneath our feet. We're aware it's there. We can feel it if it's hollow underneath us, but we don't actually experience all of those, the components of the distance between where our feet meet the earth and the center of our planet.
Mm.
Okay. So let's see here, move to the next one. So I used a whole lot of light language in this expression here. The upper right corner there, that was actually an acrylic pour that we did, and then I did some channeling of the light language along that space. And then I chose this view because I love this portion of the arc of the gold that's coming around in between the really dark inky black and the more light or the slightly gray black that's there on the lower left-hand side. And it gives us an opportunity to see both the light language and a couple different codes there. The ones that are, we'll get, hang on. There it is. Okay. Sorry. When I look at light language, I frequently slip into it. So if I start not speaking English, then that's
Yes.
true.
Totally fine.
Okay. If you like, I can go ahead and just read the whole thing to you in light language. So,
Yes.
okay. So if we're just looking at that part of the golden arc that's there, starting in the upper left-hand corner. Shishinataka mohote, dishnahra kamo kwai sinyaka. The marakitire no moho sinit sinenda morokatai sinitida. Nimuorokta gat drukumoho sididi sinihade, namarat no mohuto. Sinenar shinat mutukai, tidekai jamoko, tai shiridi damarakata hai. Kamarakata moho, tisnera mur daramokai tidite. Okay. So rough translation of that vibrational frequency is basically it's acknowledging the cosmic ether that we all come from. That's the upper right corner of what we're looking at here. And these, of course, this is on all four corners. And that's the boundary, the veil in between the parts of the universe that humans cannot perceive. Our five senses can't understand. We only get about, depending upon who you ask, 1 to 4% of the known frequencies in the universe, human bodies are actually able to pick up.
Mm.
So this is the boundary, this is the veil in between the two, and it's asking for translation from the ether, the that which we have a hard time defining, and bringing it down into the world of color and the world of vibrational frequency that humans can actually embrace.
Mm.
So, right. Um, so zooming in on the center here, you can see that each one of those little cells with the colors that are within it has fairly similar light language around each one of them. And really the translation on those is just hold the space as sacred. And it says it again and again and again
Mm.
in the vibrational colors of the human visible spectrum. Okay.
Wow.
The close up of the orchids there, and then just the crystals. If you look at the crystals, there's also the record keeping of the crystals because they do have a frequency. All crystals have a frequency, and just the light shining off of those crystals as well is kind of the lower piece there. Okay.
Yeah. It's a
Right?
lot, but it's so good. Like I feel like I'm just transported into another dimension right now.
Okay. Questions over the orchid mandala? Because
No.
I've got another one loaded here for you. So,
Yeah, let's do
okay.
it.
All right. So this is Dragon's Bridge. This is one of my favorite ones because it is almost entirely light language or it's dot work. So it's stippling. You've been in my office, Julie. You've seen there was IKEA had a quasi famous picture that somebody took of a rope bridge going across a canal, and there's a smoky tree in the background that's kind of lost in the mist. Many years ago, my partner was actually doing mediation counseling online during 2020, and um, she used that as her backdrop at our home. And one of her clients says, "What are you going to do? Throw me off the, have me walk the plank?" And she made a comment to that. I was like, maybe you should put a portal or something around it. And she went out to dinner with friends that night, and I came home and I'd done this huge golden mandala around the whole thing.
Mm.
And everybody loves it in my office, but because IKEA owns the print, I decided to go draw my own, which is where the whole
Mhm.
rope bridge concept comes from. So we've got a rope bridge that's going into a Vesica Pisces, which is the first level of division, right? If you have a single space of awareness and you move to the edge of that awareness, you end up creating a Vesica Pisces to be able to see further out. There's a nautilus spiral that's going around it, and we have two light language dragons on either side there. We're going to go investigate these real quick. So zooming into the center of the piece first, we've got the rope bridge. On the floor of the rope bridge, there's two strands of light language that's there, and you can actually see the dragon's tails are making the Vesica Pisces with the nautilus right there in the middle, which from my perspective really invites us in. While I was working on this piece, I kept hearing or sensing, hearing is the wrong word, not hearing voices, sensing that this is the bridge home. And not just for my own soul and my own experience in this realm, but really just the pathway of we have to walk across the bridge into the unknown island to be able to have a different experience of the world around us and really return back to the home, to the soul's space of origin. The entire island is light language as well. All of those trees have got light language as part of their tufts. And if you look on the trunks there, there's also little strips of light language that are going through the entire, as far as holding the trees up in all the spaces there.
Wow.
Looking at the dragon in the upper right hand corner, we can really see the light language showing up. He's got the whole spine that runs down to the crest of its back. There's light language there. There's little medallions kind of in between the skin of the side and the underbelly of it. And for whatever reason, these dragons actually wanted to have moose antlers. And so that's what they got out of this. So looking at other light language that we can read, who wants to talk today? Let's go with the dragon spine. So starting up there at the top of the head, right behind the mane of the dragon's, whatever that is. I didn't in drawing these things, I can see the image, but I don't understand always what's actually going into it. And so this crown of waviness that's coming off the dragon, it's not hair, it's not tentacles, it's just the like the lion's mane of what's coming off the energy in the space.
Wow.
Okay. So this is right behind that main, going the black light language that's there just up against the edge of the image.
Mhm.
These actually read from the tip towards the center of the piece. So each one of those is actually an invitation to go into home, and the dragons are holding the sacred space, inviting us safely across the bridge. Terere moroko sine shina tamatiki ramokoto wodete tishnira katamakata katumoho city. Tishiri datama tijanano mokoto kateshanaka tamarakatiri tishungu ditumotara. Tara the Romoto Kara Marakate Marakame, Kadishni Reta Chimu, what Ramarakata, Tiktimak, Tiktamoroto, Sitita, Sitata, Sidi Umohota Shiriti. And the shoulder piece right there, come Honich Nahatera Numo Hositit Nata. Okay. Wow. Hi. Um, I actually, in this conversation, I forgot there's light language on the spiral as well. The
Yeah.
purple arc that's going across there, there's light language that's coming from the nautilus on the center. And apparently, I did chakras there as my next ones. How are we doing on time? Do we have time to dive into another one here, real quick?
I only
Or
want to be here. I don't want to be anywhere else.
perfect? Okay.
Well, because
Um,
it's like just how we said, well, how I was saying, like when you are doing art and it's really causing you to see, like see the lines and things, see the shape of things. This is a total transmission. Your art is such a energetic transmission, and you actually literally, it's not something that you walk by and be like, oh, that's cute, or oh, that's nice. Like you have to sit with it and let it do its magic and
yeah.
transform you. Wow.
Thank you.
Thank
This
you.
is absolutely. um, the nine
Mhm.
chakras. This actually comes from my partner and I decided to do an oracle deck a couple years ago. And she had all these ideas. She had always wanted to do an oracle deck. And as we were talking about concepts, we decided I would start with drawing the chakras. Up to this point, I had never used color before. It was all black and white, and maybe a little bit of red, maybe a little bit of purple, but certainly not full color. So this is really me learning color theory and just diving both feet into the deep end with a brick and saying, all right, let's figure this stuff
Mhm.
out. So we can run through each one of the chakras here real quick. The concept, most people know of 7 chakras and not the 9 chakras.
Mhm.
So if we're in the upper left hand corner, that rainbow colored one happens to be the soul star chakra. That one sits 12 to 18 inches above the head. In the lower right corner, and we'll look at it here in just a moment, or closer to it without the little name tag, is the earth star chakra, and that one's 12 to 18 inches below the feet. So those 2 chakras hold the sacred space for the human experience. Right? They kind of hold us in the space where all the other chakras deal with the embodiment of what it is to be a human and how we constantly work to find balance within the space that we exist. Okay.
Mhm.
For people that aren't familiar, if we're on the lower right hand corner, we've got the Earth Star chakra. The red one there, that's the root chakra. That one happens to be between the genitals. The orange one in the lower left is the sacral chakra. That one's sacrum, and then the lower abdomen on the front side. The yellow one with a downward pointing triangle is the solar plexus, so the upper abdomen. The green one is the heart chakra. Blue happens to be the throat. The light purple happens to be the third eye, and then the spirally purple one happens to be the crown, which is connecting us. So it's the grounding of humanity within our own physical experience, all the way up into the spiritual expressions, and bringing balance in between all of those things. One of the pieces that there's not a lot of drawings around the Earth Star and the Soul Star chakras. And so what I decided to do was to take it from that chakra's perspective. So if we look at the Soul Star in the upper left-hand corner, first there's the crown of 1,000 petals, which is what the crown chakra says that it has. And then there's 2 petals, and that's what we have when we get to the third eye. And the colors go down. So you're going from purple in the middle to the red on the outside. When we
Mhm.
look at the Earth Star, it's the exact opposite. We got the 1,000 petals on the outside, and we go into the root chakra being the red with the 4 petals. So from the chakra's perspective of experiencing the human vessel, it was kind of what they are seeing first. Who's
Wow.
closest and who's furthest away from us, and that's where I came up with that sacred balance. that allows us all to be what we are. And this is my expression of it.
Wow.
So
Wow.
if you're interested, we can certainly do a light language transmission to make it through all 9 of these chakras real quick.
Yes.
Um, quick being, I don't know what quick's going to be. We'll see. Sometimes I get going and I can't stop.
Go ahead. We're here.
Okay, so let's start with right hand in the center of the chest, right on top of the heart chakra. Right, technically right between the nipples is where we're looking. Lower hand, we're going to put the thumb in the umbilicus gently, and we're just going to rest the hand on the lower abdomen. Okay, and these are our 2 centering points uh, for this transmission. Okay? The lower abdomen is the bowl of chi. It's the container and the vessel. It really holds a lot of the energy that not does a lot of it holds all of the energy that we need to be able to make it through our day. Right. This is the digestive system. This is how nutrients pulled out of our food, circulated through the body, and of course it circulates through the anatomical heart, and we're connecting with that. We certainly have this connection with the heart is an expression of love, but there's so much more depth to it. One of the things that I love about working with the heart specifically is that in Chinese medicine, they say that the heart is the emperor or empress, with Julie, empress of the body. It's the most important organ because it's the one that speaks to the entire empire and receives information from the entire empire. So we're dealing with our fuel source, what keeps us going, and we're dealing with the communication throughout our entire vessel. Okay. So all we're doing is in this space, we're going to be taking some deep breaths, allowing the abdomen to be able to fill. So breathing deep down into the belly, all the way up through the chest. And when it's time to release, just relax. Just gentle. We're not counting. We're not trying to do anything that's forceful. We're just getting into this rhythm of working with our body and its own experience. So breathing in, filling up the lower abdomen all the way up into the chest, shoulders, releasing, allowing our body to relax back down into itself. This time as we're breathing in, at the top of your breath, put in a little puff and sit with curiosity. You've just done something different. There's a weird little place there that you just made. When it's time to breathe out and puff. Another weird little space. Breathe in again with puff and sit in curiosity with that blank space. You just put oxygen in your system. Your body thinks that you need to breathe out immediately because that's what we always do. But because of the little puff, you put a little bit more oxygen in. The puff at the bottom, you're putting a little bit more carbon dioxide out. That calm space allows an opportunity for us to listen to our inner knowing. The lower abdomen, gut instinct, the heart, and its neural network of how it communicates through the entire body. So gently keep with that breathing in with a puff and sitting in curiosity. When it's time to breathe out, don't force yourself to hold your breath. Breathe out gently, breathe out slowly, puff, and just sit. And when your body says, I need to breathe in, then do it again. Okay. And when your mind gets distracted, because I'm speaking in a completely different language, it's okay. Get back to the breathing when you realize that you're not. Come on, do your thing. There we go. All right, so here's the Earth Star chakra. This is 12 to 18 inches below your feet. We're just going to open that space up to be able to hold a sacred foundation for us to do the rest of our work. Sire romorokotai shirita tamoko tomokotai shiriki shirakamokotai shiniti tenomotoko sinita tatai. The titan shinomokota hainaka tamohota shiniti temorata jitna atamarakata shinata mokotai terata. The data sinite romoroko sinite rana kamarakata. So the earth star chakra is branching up around us. It's actually holding the vessel a little bit stronger. It's more connected because we're calling attention to it. Switching to the root. Do just a very gentle kegel as if you're stopping the flow of urine just enough to hold up, just a hint of tension in the pelvic floor, just to acknowledge its presence. Keep breathing. Tate chiriri toromoho toromoroko satai shinina taramu ta shina tamo ta ti shinate te. Dirira taramoroko tamata taramoroko tisira tara 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 taramoho so tisha. Breathe out. Off. The sacral chakra. Hold just a little tension in the lower abdomen. Relax the pelvic floor. She's done her work. Little tension. We're not trying to suck a gut. We're just holding tension, just acknowledging what's there, just a toning to be able to breathe in and hold it in the space just a little differently. Ishinandra Moroka Shire Tamoto Daitiki Tamotata, Taratoromo Saratirishin Ramuroko Shuratina Tamohaita Tirite, Taratara Morota Shiri Morokoto Mushia Haini Tamohota. Exhale, solar plexus. Move both hands onto your upper abdomen. We need love here as part of being Westerners. We cut ourselves in half with all of our stress, with all of the tension that we experience on a regular basis. We need to be loving in this place. In this place. Particular liver, it's really angry. Ai serata mokotai terra morokatai serata morokatai nera morokai serata natra morokai kai tetara moroko. Breathe deeply. Usirara ramoroko tarata isinina taramorokatai serite aitera taramoroko sarta tarta tarta shimukoto. Exhale. Okay, into our heart. Take the hands, put them back where they were. Heart on the lower abdomen. Airata rosorate serakata mota shine tararamuta rakarete da serate sarate shirite tarakaramokoto kate sirita taramorokota de moramokote sirakata makate marakati sinakata marakate karamokoto kare. Game make it more considered and Ramata Katamaka is busy today. Karamarkota Karamakati, Ramarokati, and Maroko America getting it. Immediately getting a Morka. Tamanate Romotoko City at the Romoto Kaisreti Shinatarakato, Siriti Shinatarakato, Kotsiaka, and the Rakatama to Gaishita Montaiti Data. Daite Shinatarako Taisreti Shineta. Kaimarakoto Sotute Shete. Shishishineta Rakamohota Terate. Exhale. All right. In comes the throat. My throat usually sounds like an angry dragon, so just to let you know. Ramota, Ramrota, Seridar, Moate, Kayota, Sinite, Tamuhate, Tamorota, Amerata, Ramarata, Romarukuta, Ratisha, Taramota, Ramuros, and Atisiniati, Hamutis, Hapta, Gamaroto, Sinita, Kate, Siniti, Hamoto, Homorakoto, City, Taramota, Kaida, Kiri, Kaire Keshirita Homo Kotishinatani Hamuaiti Tetramopata. And breathe out. Almost there. Third eye. Gai Sha Tamota Gai Shiri Didira Moroko Tishia Takamoroko Taiti Tikera Katakara Moroko Tasiri Chinira Martakaide. Marication, Arteria como Hotiera Katire, Romoro Katare, Romoro Kotoisiriti, Shiri, Aramokotokai, Shinikita Kamokaita Tata. The Taita Shiniti to Mokotori, Katire, Kanamoro Katasana, Taratramorukoto sarati shinita muhaita hishnata kamuahata. Crown chakra. Morokoti sirita morakati hai rumoka sirita shiniti amata. Kaimerekata merikiri karamarkati garakari karikari karamarkata sinina morokoti shinina tarmokata shinina katamokotai tikiti tikiti kitakate kitakomokoto kasati shinata. Tamarata shinita. All right, this is almost full. Kamarakatigira marokotu morokoti sirira marokoto kochi dirik. Finishing with the soul star. Kai marokoto. Tomorokoto sirira katamakai tejina namoko. This is a mother's embrace. Kamorokoto sarada, bringing down to the earth. Kamoro saratarati shinita, holding our vessel. Kamota kai shirititi. Tirishina tarata moho tatata. Aishinata morokai teritira morokai sha. Moaiti kata. Kamoroko. Whew. Okay. That was a lot of vibration in a very short amount of time. Drink water. Go ground yourself. Be with nature as much as you can. Right? Let these frequencies integrate. It may not have made sense to your ears, but the vibrational frequency that comes from light language is understood on a much deeper level. Right? It's rearranging these energetic centers within our system. There's all 9 of them again for us to pull back together again. Okay. All right. Well, that was fun. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you. Wow. Where am I?
Third rock from the sun.
Gosh. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
I have a lot of questions, but I also don't want to talk at all.
It's fair. Not a worry. I'm going to stop screen sharing because I think that's enough artwork for today. Is that fair?
It's so beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Right. That's the light as I see it and as I interpret it and how I'm able to translate it onto the paper. That's
No.
that's the way I see the world.
Okay, well, one, I want to know what you know, but two, thank you. Thank you for such a beautiful gift. Like, there's no real words to thank you for the work that you are always offering and doing and stepping up for and patiently waiting while the rest of us get our shit together.
Like I said, experienced novice, right? I'm waiting too. I'm waiting for me to get out of my own way, right? In things that I thought I already was. And you find out, oh, there's something else I'm tripping over. Okay, darn it. How do I do better next time?
Mm.
We're all doing this journey together.
Well, thank you so much for an incredible transformative conversation and obviously
Absolutely.
like experience.
Well, thank you for not falling out of your chair. I'm grateful you were able to listen to you go.
It was so I was like, okay, I need to do this like over and over and over again. That chakra meditation and that whole little section over and over again. That was just
Okay.
really potent.
Wonderful. I'm grateful you were able to experience it and feel something out of it. So
Yeah. Thank you. All
you're
right,
very
till we
welcome.
do this again. I can't wait to do it again. Yeah, but I feel like this is probably a good landing place.
I would agree that there's people can't listen after that, right? Light language is usually a good period at the end of a presentation. Um,
Thank you.
you're very welcome.
Thank you.
Very
Thank you.
welcome. Absolutely. You shared your mantra, so I want to share that as kind of a closing thought, real quick, if you don't mind.
Mm.
Which is, universe, hold me and show me how great it can be.
Mm. Universe, hold me and show me how
Mhm.
great it can be.
Or it's going to be. It depends upon the day, but in that space, there's a safety, there's a security, the inner child is enveloped. The excitement of creativity shows up about show me the horizon, what's coming in next.
Mm.
Right. And there's also the space of, yeah, I know tripping spaces are going to come up. I got teenagers. Of course, they're going to go do whatever they're going to do. Right. And show me a path to show up differently.
Mm.
Let me show up with more greatness and more light than that I'm aware that I'm even capable of doing.
Receiving.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, Julie. Thank you as always for this opportunity. I love talking.
Anytime. Literally anytime. Wow, wow, wow. Okay. Well, I can't wait to share this one because this feels so powerful and transformative. So I'm going to get to editing now.
Awesome. Alrighty. Sounds great.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, it feels good. Thank
Good.
you.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
I'm going to stop recording.